it's Melissa. Happy Friday. Today I am going to show you how to cut some material that you may have that you don't know what the exact cut settings are, and it's probably an off-brand and it's not in Silhouette Studio. So how is one to know what the best cut settings are without wasting an entire sheet of vinyl? We have all been there, right? Okay, so what I am using today is I am going to use this DecoFilm, which is a specialty material. So it is a specialty material, but it's also from Specialty Materials, which you guys probably know, Thermoflex. That's their main line of HTV, which I love. Super soft, goes on easy, cuts easy, weeds easily. But they have a ton of different specialty materials as well. And this one I really like because it's like this metallic and chameleon type of thing and glitter all in one. There's a couple of different finishes. But the thing is, it's what do you put in the send panel? What material do you pick in the send panel to know what the best cut settings are? And instead of wasting an entire sheet, I'm going to show you how to not only do your own test cut, but how to kind of tweak when you find out that the test cut is not great. What setting do you then change first? Okay, so what I have here is one sheet that was previously cut. Where is it? And what happens specifically with this DecoFilm, and by the way, you can get this DecoFilm, which, like I said, comes in, I think, 4 different finishes. I linked up top. You can get it in sheets and rolls. So whichever one you want, you can get it. But what happens is this stuff has like a film on top of it, which is what gives it that iridescent look. And so if you don't cut it correctly, you end up with the filmy part staying on the carrier sheet. And what happens then is like, it's just this giant waste. So instead of wasting an entire sheet of vinyl, heat transfer vinyl, you want to make sure you do a test cut. All right, so how do we do the test cut? So what I would suggest that you do first is take your sheet of vinyl and figure out what is this most like. Like, what of the default cut settings in Silhouette Studio is this most like? So in this case, this is most like a glitter HTV, okay? So it's thick, but like I said, it still has that like filmy extra layer on there. So it may not cut through, but we're gonna see. So I'm gonna lay it on my mat just like I am when I'm gonna cut it. You wanna lay it down. You want everything to be just as you would normally cut. So whatever, I'm sorry, you can't see. So whatever mat you're using, make sure you're doing all of that. Okay, so in Silhouette Studio, what I'm going to do is I am going to take a small part of the design. So it's gonna, let me just turn my computer around so you guys can see. So this is the design that I'm using, okay? It has some small areas. We're gonna put it on a bag. Okay, but I only have one sheet of this, so we really have to make sure that this works. So it has a larger area, but it also has, you probably can't see, but some smaller type stars. So what I did was I duplicated this design, and then I released the compound path and ungrouped so that I could get some of the smaller areas. I took one of the small letters and I took one of the small stars, and I moved them into a second workspace. Okay, and then I put them way at the bottom, okay? I didn't change the size or anything. This is the exact size of what these pieces are going to be when they cut with the fuller design. But what you're seeing is that even if I cut these and these don't cut correctly on the cut settings that I select, at least I've only used up that small amount. Now, in addition to putting those pieces of the design down there, I used the Draw Square tool and I drew a square around that. I'm gonna show you why that's important, along with putting the design far down in a minute here. So let's go into Silhouette Studio. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this and I'm gonna tell it that I want it to cut as glitter HTV because I don't know what the actual cut settings are gonna be. And so I'm just taking my best guess based on what this material is. You have no idea how many times I get emails that are like, what should I cut this off-brand? It's like, I don't know. You're gonna have to test it, and this is the way to test it. Okay, so let's load this in here. Press the load button first so you can hold your material with 2 hands evenly so it goes in even. Okay, I'll turn this now so you can see. And again, this is glitter HTV. Now, because I put those 2 little areas down far on my design, it's gonna cut down here. You're gonna see why that's important here in a minute. Okay, let me see if I can pull this back a little bit so you guys can see. All right, so let's send this to cut. 1mm manual blade, so I had already adjusted it. It's telling me for glitter HTV that I want to be on a blade depth of 3 and a force of 33 and a speed of 5. So that's what I'm going to leave it as. Now, the reason that you put it down here is because if you use the default test cut that Silhouette Studio offers you, they put it up here. Now, the only way to then see if your test cut worked is to remove the entire thing. But if you put it down here at the bottom, now I can just keep my mat in the machine and I can test to see if this works. I'm gonna pull the camera down a little bit so you can have a little bit, you guys can make sure you see. So, oops. So I have it down here and I have my test. Now, what you cannot probably see until I take this whole thing off is that it did not cut completely through. Okay, that thin iridescent layer I was telling you is still there, which means I need to adjust my cut settings. Before you go and change the blade depth, do a second pass, okay, and see what happens there. So what I'm gonna do in Silhouette Studio is I'm gonna take that exact same design, I'm just gonna move it over slightly, and then I'm gonna recut. And because I haven't removed this from my cutting machine, it's going to cut exactly, it's not going to cut in the same spot, and it won't also cut over because I can see where it's going. I'm putting in Silhouette Studio directly next to where the existing design is. That probably doesn't make sense because you can't see my screen, but I'll show you in a second. All right, so I'm gonna go back to Silhouette Studio. The only adjustment I am going to make for the cutting is, again, to increase the passes to 2. All right, so we're still on a blade depth of 3. We can confirm that. I'm sorry that I'm like out of the screen. I'm trying to make sure you can see. I'm on a blade depth of 3. The force is as high as it can go, 33, so that's not even a factor. And the speed is not going to really impact this. So passes is what we want to do right now, all right? Okay, so let's send this again. This time it's going to cut over here because I moved it just slightly. And we will then be able to test it again. Let me adjust this camera one more time so I'm not completely out of the picture. Now, once we get a good test, then we'll be comfortable cutting that entire design, okay? All right, it's gonna spit it back out for us. Again, it's gonna stay in the machine. I'm gonna test it again. This is why it's very important that you put the box around it, because I can now pull out my entire sheet. Now, I'm gonna come around so you can see. This is the one that I did right now where I just adjusted to 2 passes. This was the original one. You can see that the film layer is actually still on my cutting mat. See, it didn't cut through. This is the good one, okay? This is the first one we did. This is with 2 passes. So now I'm comfortable sending my full design through, knowing that if I use this second pass, it should cut through on the full design like that, okay? All right, so let's do that. And again, you are not, after it's done cutting, and this is gonna take a couple minutes, but after it's done cutting, you are not gonna pull the whole sheet and mat of material out until you make sure that it has cut that way, all right? So all I'm gonna do now is just go back to the original area, original design. Oops, I forgot to mirror it, so let's flip that. I'm gonna put a big square around it again because that's my weeding box. It just makes things easier to weed, all right? And then when we go to the send panel, I'm going to select that I want heat transfer glitter, but remember, we found that the best cut settings were to increase the passes to 2 for this specialty materials chameleon glitter DecoFilm, okay? I love this stuff because of the finish that it gives, but again, it's not something that you want to waste an entire sheet with a test cut, because if you mess this up, you've now wasted your whole sheet. So I'm going to come a little bit closer so you guys can see this while it's cutting. This was another one that I did a few minutes prior. What you can hopefully see is that the one here, this was the original cut that I did. See how it has that film on there? It didn't cut through, but then when I added that second pass, it went all the way through, all right? So that's all you need to do. If after you did that second pass, it still didn't cut through, then the adjustment that you wanna do is go to the blade depth and increase the blade depth to a 4, okay, in this case. So now I know that in order to successfully cut this DecoFilm, no matter what color it is I have, the Specialty Materials DecoFilm, that I want to use the default settings for HTV glitter with an increase of 2 passes. And I can save that as a custom cut setting in Silhouette Studio so that the next time I cut it, I don't have to do all this test cutting again. I would still recommend that you do the test cut, but at least you have a much better starting point, and you'll be pretty confident that that's what you're going to use, okay? All right, so this stuff, after we're done cutting it, I'll just weed it and we'll apply it to our bag. I'm using one of my favorite tricks where I have something on the other side of the bag, but for tutorial purposes, we're going to put something on this blank side. So people ask me all the time, what do you do with all this stuff you make? Well, I flip it over and I make something else. That's what I do. Okay, so this is cutting. Now, those of you asking about this DecoFilm and where to get it, I threw the links up top. You can get it at heattransfervinyl.com. If you haven't shopped there, they have a ton of specialty materials. The brand Specialty Materials, which makes Thermoflex. You're probably familiar with that. They are notorious for having tons of different patterns, really cool specialty materials, glitter, chameleon, iridescent, metallic-like finishes, foils, different things like that that you can cut with your Silhouette machine. And they all are like really thin. They go on, like even their glitter, you get like a pretty thin, it's not like as chunky as some of the other glitters out there, okay? All right, so once this is done, I have my heat press warmed up. This requires about 300 degrees, 305 degrees for 20 seconds. And if you look on the website, it actually will tell you if it's cold or hot peel, and I always forget, so let me just check. You want medium pressure, and this is a warm peel. It only needs about 10 seconds. I said 20. It only needs about 10 seconds. And you can use your regular heat press for this stuff. Mine's pretty much warmed up at this point, so we'll be all ready to go. Oh, I got a lot of stuff over there. Okay. All right. Medium pressure. So because it needs medium pressure, I'm not even actually going to use a pressing pillow. Now, one thing people ask about bags all the time, this bag is not going to be too much trouble because the straps are coming off the top. If you're using one of those large canvas duffel bags and the straps are attached, you know how they come like down the center? It's very difficult to get a good solid press on that with your heat transfer. So what you want to do for those is actually either not use a heat press and just instead use something like an easy press so that you can get between the canvas handles, or you want to make sure that you use a pressing pillow where it lifts up that area. But if you are having a hard time getting a good pressure and solid press on HTV on a canvas bag that has straps, it's the straps. They're thick, and so the top part of your heat press has trouble making full contact putting the HTV down, okay? I told you this was going to take a second. This design is from So Fancy. I'll throw the link up as well. It's just kind of, I think it says something about sarcasm, which is, I just thought was kind of cute. So that's all we're doing here, but because it is one design and because we're doing it on this iridescent, I love that it'll make it look like a bunch of different colors. And even though it's just one solid sheet, we don't have to layer any vinyl or HTV or anything like that. It'll still give it like a kind of a different look. All right, so once this is finished, I'm going to do my test weed, which I do. You guys have seen me do this before. I keep everything still on the machine, and I'm going to weed out a small bit to make sure. Usually I try to weed out like the middle of a letter to make sure that it has evenly cut. And again, if it hasn't, then we will send it through again. But because we've done that test cut, it should be okay. All right, so this is almost done. Any questions that you guys might have about this glitter, chameleon glitter? I always, the name is like 3 names long. DecoFilm Glitter Chameleon. Or other materials that you have trouble with cutting. If you're not sure what to cut with, again, you just want to go in and find, what is it most like, and that's where you are going to start, okay? All right, this is almost done. I know because in Silhouette Studio, it's telling me it's telling me there's 2 minutes left. It's not super accurate, but we'll see if it takes about 2 more minutes. I'm going to actually do a pre-press on this so we can get this all ready. So I'm going to just heat this and do a pre-press on this. while we're waiting. And then if you need to find the center of your blank or shirt or whatever it is that you're using, you guys know this trick, you can just fold in half and make a quick crease line down the center so that you know where to put the center of your design, because you'll also fold your design. Sorry, I have my back to you. Okay, we'll push that down for just a couple seconds to make that center fold, crease line. All right, and then we'll be all ready. Oops, told you I was doing something on the back. Okay. All right, so now we have our fold line down the crease line down the middle there. Okay, now this is about ready. So let's see. I have, like I said, I have this box around here. I can feel the design on there. And I'm gonna try to weed this out. Now, even though we did our cut, look, this is why it's so important not to take this out right away. Because look, I'm trying to weed this piece out and it's not coming. It's that extra film that's on there. If I just weed it down here, we might have better luck. But you can actually see, hopefully you can see in the corner, see how this film is staying on there? This is why it's so important that you don't take this whole thing off. So what I'm gonna do now, we already had it go through 2 passes. So in this case, and again, I don't know why the Silhouette will cut the test cut fine and then the full design, but we have now avoided wasting our entire sheet because we have left it in here, and now I can send it back to cut. It's gonna cut on the exact same line. Now the only thing that's gonna be difficult is that we're gonna have to sit here and wait again, but what I am gonna do is speed up the speed for us. There's not too many things that should be a problem. So we're gonna cut it again. And even though it's annoying that we have to cut this again, and I really hate that you guys have to sit here, this is why I like doing Facebook Lives, okay? Because what happens is you see that I go through the same things that you go through, and that how to fix those issues, okay? So again, once this is done, now we've increased the blade depth by 1, and we're doing the 2 passes. So hopefully this time it will work, and we'll try to weed out another little area. We need a clean weed, because otherwise if we don't, it's gonna ruin our whole sheet of HTV, okay? All right, so let's let this go. I'm gonna show you what happens if you take it out. This is one that I cut, this was a long time ago, but you guys can see this material, it has these 2 layers, and you need to go all the way through. And if you don't, it just ruins that whole thing. This is what makes it iridescent, and it's just kind of tough, crinkly, okay? That's why you need to get all the way through that, and when you're weeding it, you need both of those layers to come up, or you've ruined your whole sheet, okay? So I'll throw up links as well for weeding boxes to figure out, what you do, but honestly, a weeding box is very, very easy to use and to make. You just use the Draw a Box tool, which is on the left side of your Silhouette Studio. It might not look like a box for you. It depends on what the last tool was that you used in the drawing tools. But if you use the Draw a Box tool and draw a box around your design itself, you'll be able to use that to weed, and then that way you're not fighting with your entire sheet of vinyl, okay? All right, so let's watch this, and hopefully this time it will go all the way through. And then we'll try to test weed it again. So, let's chat while we're all waiting. And yes, I got very hot. I took my shirt off while you weren't looking. What questions do you guys have? What materials do you struggle with cutting? What are you wondering, like, what should I try? What questions do you have? Because while we have a few minutes while this is waiting, I can certainly help answer, or at least try to guide you and give you some advice on where you could at least start if you're struggling with trying to find the best cut settings for your material. Now this one I can see, the parts that it's cut, I can see there's a deeper cut line there. So hopefully that means that it is cut through completely. Anyone have any burning questions. I can't see any comments coming up as questions, so I don't know if that means you don't have any questions or what. Thank you, Tiffany. I will look at the link. I'm at work now, so, oh, okay. Yeah, any questions about this specific material or where to get it are up top, and what I'll do after we cut this whole thing is I'll put the recommended cut settings that I found that work well for this, which in this case, I have it on blade depth of 4, force of 33, and 2 passes. That's what we're cutting on right now, okay? So what I like to consider that second weed where after we cut the whole design and then we try to weed it out, I like to consider that like a test, another test cut, because again, if you don't move anything, you're free to just resend it again, okay? And you have plenty of things that you can try to weed out and make sure that they cut well, cut completely through. If you take your material and your mat out of the machine and try to and then try to line it back up so that it cuts on those lines, it's not going, there's no way. You have a fraction of a millimeter off, it will never cut on the same line. But if you leave it in here, it will be fine, okay? I had a couple people that were asking about different other types of vinyl and HTV. Again, whether you're using Thermoflex's PSV or Thermoflex's, they have, you know, their, Specialty Materials PSV or Specialty Materials Thermoflex or some other brand or whatever, and it's not in Silhouette Studio. Start with what is it most like at the core of the product. What is it most like? Is it most like paper? Is it most like vinyl? Is it most like adhesive vinyl? Is it most like, you know, glitter HTV? Because all of those materials, even though they're different brands or whatever, they have the same like type of makeup. And while some, like this glitter, for example, has that extra film, some other glitter HTVs, they're just thicker than other ones, okay? So you just have to think mostly about what it is most like, because while Silhouette Studio has, I don't know, 100 different default materials in there, they can't possibly have all of them. All right, so this is almost done, I think, and then we will try again. You guys might not be able, you guys probably can't see what it's doing here. Let's see if I can get you guys to see a little bit easier. Okay, here we go. Try again. Again, we're going to take a little area that we can try to test cut. Again, I like to use the middle of a letter. Let's see. There's something. Here's a piece here. Okay, did you see? Oh, you couldn't even see how easily that weeded out. Let me show you here. Can you see this? Okay. Okay, so I am confident now that with these new settings that we have created, this second send through, that it now will work, okay? And now I'm ready to unload my machine, okay? All right, so now I'm just gonna weed this, and because I made that weeding box, I want you guys to keep your scissors close. I say that, but I have no idea where my scissors are. The reason that you wanna keep your scissors close is because on a design like this, where you've got a lot of this, a large piece here. Now look, see how where I started both the shiny iridescent layer, which is left behind here, but not here, it's coming up with it. So see, this is a really nice cut. Now, the reason that I have my scissors close by is to just trim different pieces like this, because the less pull that you have on your design, the better it's going to be, especially for something like this thick material, all right? So let's pull in the direction. Don't be hasty and just pull the whole thing all at once. Look, this is a beautiful cut here coming off of here. You can see I had one little piece there that was not coming, okay? All right, so as long as you figure out what those test, how to best cut your material, you will not be afraid. I should say, as long as you know how to best test cut your material, you won't be afraid to try materials that you've never cut before, okay? Because that's a big thing that we hear, like, I don't want to buy this material and spend $3 on a sheet of it or whatever the case may be, and then I mess up the whole sheet and it's just wasted. What are the test cut set? What are the cut settings? The other thing is every machine is slightly different, okay? So what my machine cuts on is a good, you know, if it works like it did here, that's a great place for you guys to start, but I would still suggest that you do a test cut, okay? And you see how this is working? Okay, and I'm gonna just trim again because I don't wanna be pulling. The less that I can have this pulling on the rest of my design, the more likely it is that I'll be able to successfully weed this whole thing. You just have to be patient, but this one's worth it. I love the final look of this stuff. So let's see. Now, I've got an area here where it wants to pull in this direction and this direction. Use your weeding tool to help it pick this stuff up, because the less pressure you can put on the actual design, the more likely the actual design will stay put, okay? If you pull too hard, you risk pulling up parts of the design itself. So again, I'm gonna trim. I'm gonna trim here. Just be careful. Okay, so see how I have this whole thing? All right. Now I'm gonna pull, this is again why my weeding box is so helpful. Okay, this whole thing. So it took us a little bit longer to get this whole design cut, A, because it's a big design, and B, because we didn't know what the best cut settings were. But what ends up happening is we have now at least, it may have taken us 10 or 15 minutes, but what we didn't do is waste a whole sheet of vinyl. Now I am struggling with a little piece right here, okay? There's one letter here that doesn't want to cooperate. So you have a couple of things you can do. I'm gonna show you it in a second. Okay, let's just weed out these other items these other spots while we're here. Okay, we've got a lot of little, pop those off. This is nice because some glitter you can't really see the cut lines, and this one you can. All right, okay, so I have a couple of little, I don't wanna say issues, but like the film is still on here for this one. So either we can recut these these letters, or in this case, I just kind of trimmed it with my hook and it just came right off. And I can do the same thing. Typically, the reason this happens, and I can tell you exactly why this happens, there's something on my mat under here. So the pressure is slightly different. I also have an X-Acto knife that I'll just trim around to clean that up. Okay. And I'll pop that up. Okay, oops. All right, so now I'm gonna pull this off. I'm gonna pull this whole sheet off of my cutting mat. Pull my cutting mat away. All right. And you see how I have this design? Okay, so now I noticed that when I turned it over, I sometimes notice once I look from the right side that I missed a spot weeding. This R is kind of bothering me a little still here. If I can't fix it, I'm just gonna cut a new R. I don't have to cut the whole thing. I'm just gonna cut the new R if I have to. Yeah. Okay, so I need to cut this new one. It's okay, I'm just gonna take it out of there and we'll fix that in a minute. All right, so now our whole design is ready. The other thing about the weeding box is I've now saved all of this extra, okay? Trim this. Okay, I'm gonna use a small piece of this to recut that letter that I'm missing. We'll do that in a minute. Let's put this rest of this design on our bag. No matter how big of a table that you have, could you always use a bigger table? The answer is always yes. Okay. All right, so we have the middle line on here. We can, whoops, I can see I also missed weeding out the R. Okay. I'm gonna fold this in half to get a general idea of where the center of this design is as well. Okay. If I crease that a little bit, I can line up those two creases. Okay. And that will give me a pretty good idea of the center of my design. All right. So let's go back over to the heat press. So you guys can see me. Oops. Okay. right? About 10 seconds we said, right? Okay. This one I need to tap the timer light so that the timer starts counting down, and I can see up here it's telling me 15, 14, 13. Once it hits 10, I had it set for 20, but once it hits 10, I'll just pop this up, okay? Swing it away here, and then we'll make sure that it has stuck, and it has. Okay. And then you come down here, and we'll peel this whole part off. Isn't that gorgeous? I love the way it looks on there. It has this awesome like iridescent. Now, we need to fix this R, okay? You did not mess up your whole project because 1 or 2 letters didn't weave correctly, okay? All you're gonna do is you're gonna put this scrap piece that you have right here, all right? You're gonna go back into Silhouette Studio and make sure that your design is all still the same size, okay? So you're not probably gonna be able to see what I'm doing. I'll see if I can come around to the other side of this table and do it while you're watching. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna, oops, I need to go to the design panel, okay? So this is the R right here that we're missing. So I'm just going to ungroup, okay? I don't have access to this full R yet, but if I do release compound path, then I can get my R, I'm gonna copy it and put it in a new work area. I'm gonna put it right here. Now the middle of that R, you can see that, right, is missing, you can see. So all I need to do is do a make compound path. So here's my R, I'm gonna put it up here. I'm gonna put a little box around it, okay? I'm gonna go back to my send panel. Again, I'm gonna click glitter transfer, okay? I don't know why it's telling me that my machine is no longer available. The Bluetooth turned off. Okay, so now it's going to, give it a second here. All right. We know it needs to be on a blade depth of 4 because we just cut this, and we want it to do 2 passes. It's not 3, 2. All right, and blade depth of 4, although it doesn't really matter. This is just an indicator. And then we'll click, we'll put this back in here. Okay. And we'll send this to cut. And our R will cut. Okay. So, the reason that it didn't cut that R, do you see this piece of scrap that's on my mat? There's a little piece of paper that was on my mat. That's the exact same spot that this didn't cut. Any debris on your mat changes the force or the pressure of your blade, okay? And that is why that didn't work correctly. Now let's see. Yep, this cut. Okay, so let's pull that out of there. Can you see? There's my R. Okay, so now I have my R. I'm just gonna take it and put it in position, and then we'll just press one more time. And this will be, our bag will be complete. All right. Now, 15 minutes ago, or however long this project has taken, I had no idea what the correct cut settings were for this design. But we figured it out by looking at what the material is most like, okay? I need to go put this back on my heat press, so I'll meet you back over there. And we're gonna, this time we need to cover it with a Teflon sheet. The reason being, the entire rest of the HTV is exposed, okay? So we don't want that to get directly hit with the heat press. We need to cover the entire design. Okay, so we'll do another 10 seconds on that, and then we will be done, okay? Okay. Okay. There we go. R is right there. And no one will ever know that we had to cut that separately, okay? So, moral of the story is, do not be afraid to cut materials that you've never cut before because you don't know what the cut settings are. You can find them by simply selecting what the design is most like. Here, I'll pull this closer so you can see. And then adjusting by doing a couple of test cuts, okay? All right, this turned out really cute. I love this design. It's made really awesome by this really like metallic-y, it's like I told you guys, this is the DecoFilm from Specialty Materials. The link is up top. You can get it in sheets or rolls. So go ahead and grab it. It comes in 4 different colors. So this one has more of like a yellowy. You saw when we didn't cut through, you know, it has, some of them are just a little bit different. It depends on which color you buy, okay? All right, you guys, I hope you have a fabulous weekend. And remember, there's always a way to save that project. See you guys.